So some guidance as we think about our project management experience and how we're going to document that on the PMP application. Let me give you a couple of points that PMI has actually transmitted to some aspirants, PMP aspirants before. So first of all, project entries that you make need to represent professional and compensated work. I know it says compensated there, but I've never seen PMI reject a project that you did for maybe a nonprofit, you were a volunteer project manager. I've never seen them reject it. Matter of fact, we do sometimes for PMI, we volunteer our project management skills for PMI, and I've documented those things before. So, but it definitely has to be for a professional organization. You don't want to document something on your application that you built a deck on the back of your house, because that's not for a professional organization. It was just done for you. So they're looking for professional experience. And the tasks that you document are project tasks, not routine, operational, or administrative in nature. This bullet right here, I think, is what I've seen people have applications rejected for more often than anything else. You have got to be real careful in the way that you word the narrative write-ups for your projects. You're going to document all of your project management experience and write a paragraph on the application that describes what you did on the project to lead and direct it. If that narrative paragraph sounds like operational work or merely administrative in nature, PMI will disallow that as a project experience entry, and you may not get approved. So we don't want to sound operational. Now, as you keep on following your PM-ProLearn course material, we're going to get in depth about the difference in operational and project work. But basically, let me give you a quick overview. A project has a definite beginning and a definite end and a definite goal that is achieved, whereas operational work is ongoing, repetitive. We've got to do it all the time or the organization ceases to exist. So operations are important and projects are important, but this exam is about projects. Okay, so projects should be documented individually, and multiple projects are not documented as one big project. So you need to break it out and call, a 6-month project a 6-month project rather than several 6-month projects turning it into a big 2-year project. Your experience hours that you document are reasonable for the time frame of the project. For example, if you had a 1-month project and you documented 1,000 hours of effort on that project in that 1 month, that's not reasonable. No one can work 1,000 hours in 1 month. So PMI would disallow that as being, beyond the realm of possibility. So you just want to make sure that it's a good rule of thumb to think of a 40-hour work week when you're documenting your hours. If I worked on a project all day, every day for a full week, then that's 40 hours of project experience I could document. If you use that as a rule of thumb, you will sound reasonable to PMI in your experience hours. So a couple of more things that PMI wants you to know about documenting your projects. And some of these things I've learned through experience. Project titles. You've got to give a title to each project and give it a name, for example. And it needs to reflect the true project title and not what your role or function was on the project. So if you were a project manager for a process improvement project, you want to call it that. You'd want to say cost process improvement project. Give it a formal name. And then deliverables that you create on your project are documented clearly in your narrative paragraph write-up, and you want to document deliverables in each one of the 5 performance domains in which you are claiming hours of leading and directing project tasks. So if I claim 20 hours of initiating on project A, my narrative for project A needs to say something about what I did to initiate the project. For example, I might say, I developed the project charter for this project, and that would indicate a deliverable item. The project charter would have been a deliverable item out of the initiating of that project, and I clearly talk about that in my write-up. And you do the same thing for planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. What was the items that were created or came into existence because of your project management skills? The first sentence of your paragraph narrative for each project should be a brief statement of the project's goal. For example, if I was doing that process improvement project for cost, the first sentence of that narrative might say, I managed the cost improvement project to achieve a 30% cost savings over the course of 6 months. Something to that effect. Okay, so that PMI can clearly, when they read that first sentence of your narrative, they have a clear understanding of what the goal of the project was. So as they're reading all the rest of your sentences there, they can kind of have a frame of reference that, oh, okay, this really is a project. It had a definite goal, and they'll have a good orientation. All the remaining sentences in your narrative after the first sentence should reference PMPECO aligned tasks that you perform. So I'm going to show you an example of this, but remember we just had the PMPECO document on the screen, and I showed you all the 8 task statements in initiating. That means that every sentence you write in your narrative description of your project work needs to align with performing one of those 8 tasks if you're claiming hours for initiating. Okay, so let's look at the definition of a project. That's the very first place we want to start, right? If I've got to document projects and make sure that I'm not documenting operational work, let's hone in on the definition of a project. So here it is in big red print. A project is any temporary endeavor to produce a unique product, service, or goal. Notice that the word temporary there is important. It means it's got a definite beginning and a definite end. Projects end. Operations don't. And we want to produce something unique there, meaning that every project is different. Now you might, if you're a construction project manager and you build houses, you might have built 10 houses in the last year, but each house is still unique. Each house has maybe a different floor plan or different challenges that come up, different risks that you see, different construction methods and materials. There's uniqueness in those houses, so each one is a project. And notice that the outcome of the project is unique, but it can be a product, which is a physical thing that we could, hold in our hand and maybe sell on the market, a service, capability to perform a service, or a goal. Like you have a goal to pass the PMP exam. So you actually have a small project that you're doing right now to prepare for, take, and pass the PMP exam. And so that's a project. There's a definite goal there. So the first thing you want to do when you're documenting your projects, step 1 is to define your projects. And by how do I do that? By first identifying what was the unique product, service, or result that I was responsible for creating. If you cannot clearly identify a unique product, service, or result that you were creating at during a period of time, then I wouldn't claim any of your work during that period of time as a project. You have to have a unique product, service, or goal result that you were responsible for creating. A couple of examples. A process improvement project. I started out with a process in its as-is state. I did a project to improve it, and we saved 30% on costs. And so that's a goal that we achieved. We achieved the 30% cost savings. It could be I'm a commercial construction project manager and I'm building a commercial office building. Once the building comes into existence, that is a product. So there's many things there that could be a unique product, service, or result. First, identify what that is. Now, once you identify your product, service, or result, then just think about when did I start working on that goal and when did I finish working on that goal. And now you have the 2 dates, the goalposts of start and finish for your project, and you're going to use those dates on your application to tell PMI how long that project was in duration. Step 2, after you know what your project is, I want you to sit down with a blank piece of paper and a pen and just think about what you did on that project. And write down 5 to 10 statements about what you did on that project. And it could be anything from, well, let's see, I sat down and I determined what materials were going to be needed to construct this house, for example. I actually did some market research and I determined the best place to buy those materials. And then maybe after I purchased the materials, I went back and did some checking against my materials list to make sure that I had the right materials, that my cost estimates came in, basically that's what we actually spent. Or if there were any differences, I might need to make some adjustments in future spending if I overspent on materials. So just sit there and think about what are the 5 to 10 big ticket things that you can say you did on your project. Excuse me. So step 3, once you've got your 5 to 10 statements down, I want you to pull up that PM-ProLearn document, and I want you to compare the 5 to 10 statements that you wrote to the tasks that you see in the PM-ProLearn. And we want to look for alignment. So if I said that I sat down and thought about all the materials that I needed to purchase, and I made a list of those materials I needed to purchase, well, that sounds like estimating activity resources to me. And so that's something that you're going to do, and we'll see that in the PM-ProLearn, thinking about all the resource requirements that I need. And then I mentioned also, hey, I went and actually bought those things. So those are procurement activities. So that's in executing. So we execute the procurement management plan by going and actually acquiring the resources that we need. And then I mentioned going back and checking to make sure I had the right materials and that my spending on those materials was in line with what I planned to spend. So that right there is doing controlling costs. And that's one of the things that you would do in monitoring and controlling performance domain. So I want to write down what I did on the project and then compare it to the PM-ProLearn and see which of these actual PM-ProLearn tasks line up with what I actually did. And so I think I just talked through step 4. Identify those PM-ProLearn tasks that match my statements in each of the 5 performance domains. And what I would do is print out the PM-ProLearn and sit down with a highlighter and highlight on my paper. Let's say on project A, I'm going to go down and highlight all of the PM-ProLearn tasks that I think I actually performed on project A. And I'll do that for each project. And so I'll end up with a list of PM-ProLearn tasks that apply to what I did on project A, what I did in project B, and so forth. And the last thing, after I find out what PM-ProLearn tasks match what I actually did on the project, I want to rewrite my 5 to 10 statements by personalizing each matched PM-ProLearn task with my actual experience.